The shocking truth about why God destroyed the Canaanites at 3 a.m. You won't believe this revelation. The clock struck 3, the witching hour. In the depths of darkness, when shadows twist and dance, an unspeakable truth unraveled, one that sent shivers down the spine of the bravest hearts. The Canaanites, a civilization unaware of their impending doom, huddled together in their homes, blissfully ignorant as terror loomed. What force could unleash divine wrath at such an ungodly hour? The answer lay hidden in a tapestry of betrayal and ancient secrets. As whispers, the color of shadow floated through the ancient streets. A chilling wind ripped past, carrying with it a heavy sense of foreboding. Muffled cries echoed through narrow alleys, only to be swallowed whole by the night. The Canaanites had angered something far beyond their comprehension. Sacrifices, once believed to appease the vengeful deities, now served as fuel for a fire that blazed with judgment, and the smoke of their sins obscured the very heavens. Some claimed to have seen figures lurking just outside their flickering lantern light, cloaked in inky blackness, their eyes radiating a sinister glow. Were these the shades of the past or the sentinels of divine retribution? Fear gripped the hearts of those who dared to peek outside. It was said the ground trembled as curses were whispered under breath, dark prayers escaping cracked lips. What twisted fate awaited them? Little did they know that each heartbeat synchronized with the ticking clock, drawing them closer to an inevitable confrontation. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the clock's hand slid into position, a piercing silence blanketed the land, erasing the ordinary sounds of night. It was a foreboding stillness, the kind that hangs in the air just before a thunderstorm. Suddenly, a cacophony erupted, a deafening roar erupted from the angered sky above. The earth quaked, as if God himself descended to deliver a judgment that would echo through the ages. The ground split open with a monstrous growl, swallowing homes and lives, as the Canaanites screamed in horror. In that moment, one lone figure stood aghast, frozen in place. Her body radiated fear, but her heart yearned for understanding. She felt a growing distance between her and everything she had known. Behind her wide eyes was a question that held the weight of worlds. Were they truly forsaken? As debris rained down and darkness consumed all, the shimmering glimmer of hope flickered just beyond the chaos. What truth awaited them in the ashes? Would she dare to seek it? In the aftermath of chaos, the air thickened with dust and despair. A haunting wail resonated through the ruins, birthed from the hearts of those who lost everything in an instant. She stood there, trembling amidst the scattered fragments of her world, a lone survivor, cradling the weight of unanswered questions. Her name, a whisper of resistance, was Miriam. As she took a step forward, shards of collapsed stone crunched beneath her feet. Each sound amplified her isolation, echoing against the stillness that gripped the night. Around her, shadows danced ominously, and she couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were watching, waiting. An overwhelming dread clawed at her insides. What had they done to invite such fury? She thought, her mind racing with memories of the rituals the animals sacrificed, the prayers uttered in desperate voices. Had they sought to please the gods or provoke them? As the dust settled, fragments of voices trickled back to her, frantic, terrified, blaming each other for their doom. Fingers pointed at those who had failed to uphold the traditions, who had ventured too close to what was deemed forbidden. Miriam's heart ached for clarification. Was it her family's neglect of the ancient codes that brought this calamity? A shiver ran down her spine as she thought about the elders who had spoken so adamantly of impending judgment. With no guiding force but her nurturing drive for truth, Miriam pressed into the heart of the devastation. She traversed the remnants of her life, her fingers skating over the cool stones, where warmth of community had once thrived. She stumbled upon her sister's beloved doll, half buried, a grotesque symbol of innocence lost. The sight of it made her stomach twist. Would her sister be among the fallen? Determined to grasp the truth, Miriam's eyes darted upward, seeking signs in the smoke-wreathed sky. Maybe the answers lay in the heavens, tangled in the cries of lost souls. As if responding to her glances, a distant rumble echoed, a reminder of the malevolent storm that lingered on the horizon, puffs of ash swirling toward her like tendrils of grief. Suddenly, the ground beneath her shifted again, a brutal reminder of the cataclysm they had just witnessed. Heart racing, she made a choice. Clenching her jaw, she turned from the ruins and dashed towards the village elder's home. She heard whispers of forbidden texts, scrolls held close like treasures. Perhaps there existed guidance, a story buried beneath the bedrock of their cultures, a thread connecting them to divine intentions. With each frantic step, memories flooded her thoughts, of tales long forgotten, of a time when divine messages came through visions and dreams. Clarity washed over her like cold water. Was this chaos a test or a sign? Would she be strong enough to face the truth? Miriam reached the elder's dwelling, its once majestic entrance now warped and twisted. A beam of courage surged through her, whispering a promise that kept her feet moving. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye, the sinister glow of those lurking figures, drawing nearer. What would they want? Could they be the guardians of the truth she sought, or were they harbingers of her worst fears? The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on her, threatening to buckle her under its power. In that charged moment, she had to decide. Would she confront the darkness before her, or flee back to the remnants of her shattered life? As she stood faced with the unknown, the ground trembled violently beneath her. Miriam took a deep breath and stepped forward. But little did she know what awaited her. Miriam's heart hammered in her chest as she stepped into the elder's dwelling, the air thick with a musty scent of aged parchment and lingering incense. Shadows clung to the corners, whispering secrets of countless generations. Her breath caught in her throat, a mix of awe and dread. If there were answers here, they were buried deep beneath layers of time. The flickering candlelight danced over the scrolls meticulously stacked on the shelves, their spines cracked and yellowed. Miriam paused, her fingers trembling as she reached for one. It felt alive beneath her touch. She could almost hear it calling, promising truths that could shatter the darkness looming over her. Suddenly, a chilling gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles, plunging her into a suffocating darkness. Panic gripped her as she fumbled for the door, disoriented. The lurking figures outside, the flickers of ominous eyes had closed in. An oppressive silence settled, punctuating her isolation. Then came the whispers, low and guttural, seeping through the walls like poison. You should not have come here, Miriam. Each word vibrated in her bones, urging her to retreat. The door creaked, and she turned, instinct screaming at her to flee. But what if the answers were right here? With a surge of resolve, she blurted out into the darkness. I need to know what happened. I need to understand why. The voice responded, amused and chilling. You're seeking truth in the ashes, child. What you find may not be the salvation you hope for. Her blood ran cold. A sickening thought twisted in her mind. What if she was digging too deep? What if the truth was worse than the chaos outside? But it was too late to retreat now. The ground trembled beneath her feet again, sending waves of fear ricocheting through her body. Miriam's gaze darted to the scrolls. Could one of them hold the key? She desperately fumbled to ignite a candle, striking flint against a steel shard. The flame flickered to life, bathing the room in dim light. The moment the whispers grew louder, they began to interlace, fragmented phrases weaving a disturbing tapestry of events: the sacrifices, the calls for aid, the rising anger of the gods. It all pointed back to the horrors interred in her people's hearts. The flickering light caught a reflection, and she turned just in time to see one of the figures materialize at the edge of the shadows. It wore a hood, its features obscured, but the malevolence radiated from it like heat. Miriam, it hissed, voice smooth as silk yet laced with malice. You play with forces you cannot comprehend. This is not a quest for knowledge, it is a descent into darkness. She stood frozen, the weight of its words pressing against her chest. Did she dare ask the question that loomed larger than the ruins outside? The truth behind their suffering. Why were we punished? She managed, voice trembling. The air thickened around her, dense with anticipation. The figure stepped forward, revealing a skeletal hand, outstretched toward the scrolls behind her. To know why is to understand the price of your people's ignorance. Miriam's throat tightened. As those words sank in, the shadows shifted ominously, a secret revealed, yet shrouded in apprehension. She could feel the enormity of that knowledge looming over her like a dark storm, about to unleash its full fury. Then, with a sudden crash, the wall behind her buckled and crumbled, opening a gaping maw that pulled her gaze. What lay beyond? She could only guess, but a sickening sense of inevitability washed over her. A decision pressed upon her, to plunge into the depths, or to remain shattered amidst the wreckage of knowledge and despair. In that heartbeat, with chaos erupting around her, she knew she couldn't turn back now. The truth, whatever it was, waited just beyond her reach. Unlike before, she wouldn't let fear dictate her path. But would she be ready for the revelation that awaited her? Would she survive the darkness that beckoned? The ground shook beneath her feet again, stronger this time, as the ceiling above her began to crack and splinter. Miriam braced herself for what was to come. The rubble around her crumbled, giving way to a yawning void that beckoned with a sinister allure. Heart racing, Miriam glanced back at the figure cloaked in shadows. Its cold laughter echoed in her ears as it urged her forward. The choice was clear, whether she liked it or not: confront the abyss or get swallowed by the chaos of ignorance. With a determined breath, she stepped into the darkness beyond the broken wall. The air felt sharp and electric, an impending storm of revelation swirling just out of sight. Each step pulled her deeper into a labyrinth of unknown terrors. Suddenly, the space opened up, revealing a vast chamber illuminated by an eerie glow. Strange symbols lined the walls, pulsating with a life of their own. A central altar stood at the heart of the room, draped in crimson fabric stained dark with age. The sight tugged at something primal, within her a flicker of understanding mixed with fear. "Welcome to the heart of the truth," the figure called out, now less shadow and more presence, the malice suddenly replaced by a chilling stillness. "Here lies the horrors you have sought." Miriam approached the altar, drawn to a scroll unfurling slowly atop it, as if revealing itself willingly. It seemed to glow with a frequency that resonated in her bones. Goosebumps prickled her skin as she reached out to touch its surface. With each word she read, a sense of foreboding washed over her. The scroll detailed the old, golden days of her people, their hubris, their greed. It spoke of the ancient goddess wrath, turned toward a land that prospered yet failed to recognize the darkness it harbored in its heart. And this, the figure whispered, drawing closer, is the reckoning of their arrogance. Miriam's breath hitched. The weight of guilt, blame, and a haunting past pressed down on her. Were the misfortunes simply punishment for sins long ago? Were her people collateral damage in a divine plan beyond human comprehension? The intricate web of sacrifice and vengeance began to ensnare her thoughts, threading through her fears and hopes alike. "You see?" the figure continued, its voice echoing, growing softer now, weaving through her mind. "The answers lie not just in the history of your people, but in the blood that binds you to it." Miriam's eyes widened as she noticed her own reflection in a dark pool forming at the altar's edge. It was an image not just of herself, but of generations past, pain-stained faces echoing back, pleading for understanding, demanding accountability. The likeness was unmistakable. They lived on in her struggles and choices. "No," she gasped, stepping back as the realization twisted painfully in her gut. "This isn't just about the past, this is about us." "Indeed," the figure replied, dripping with the sinister satisfaction of a reveal well earned. "To know our history is to face the truth. You bear the weight of your ancestors, and now, dear Miriam, you must decide." The ground trembled beneath her feet as the shadows deepened, threatening to claim her at any moment. A split second felt like an eternity. Will you rise and break the cycle, or will you remain shackled to the sins of old? The chamber spun, her thoughts spiraled into chaos. Outside, chaos reigned too. The familiar sounds of crackling fires and anguished cries beckoned her back. But she couldn't turn away now. She needed to know. "Choose wisely," the figure warned, its eyes glazing over like shards of ice. The cost of ignorance is steep. Heart pounding, Miriam faced the scroll again. It held the key, a weapon against the darkness that had shrouded her people for generations. Would dismantling their past lead her to hope? Or would it plunge her deeper into despair? A deafening noise erupted from outside, echoing like the despair of a world that had already lost itself. Tension clung to the air, electric and thick. "This is just the beginning," the figure hissed, a slight smile curling within the shadows. As if sensing her hesitation, its tone dropped into a velvet whisper. "What lies within you may yet be the salvation or the end." Miriam stared into the abyss of secrets, resolve, and doubt battling for dominance. Could she escape the depths, or was she already too far gone? With a surge of determination, she reached for the scroll, intent on unraveling her fate beneath its weighty truths. But just as her fingertips brushed the parchment, the world exploded in a brilliant flash. A deafening roar filled the chamber as everything slipped away into darkness once more. Miriam's heart thundered in the void, the air thick with panic as the roar cascaded over her like a tidal wave. Everything flickered and faded, and she couldn't grasp what was real. Then silence. She blinked, disoriented. Dim light filtered in, gentle and warm, pulling her back from the brink of crushing darkness. The chamber had vanished, replaced by a quiet grove flanked by towering trees, their branches swaying softly in an unseen breeze. The sense of damp earth and blooming flowers filled her senses. Had she been transported to a dream? But the unsettling whispers of the figure still lingered in her ears. Choose wisely. Miriam staggered to her feet, bracing herself against a gnarled tree. Her body trembled, the memories of chaos and fear still etched in her mind. There were no cracks of distant thunder now, just haunting tranquility that strangled her resolve. Was it a vision? She murmured, her voice trembling in the stillness. She searched her surroundings, but there were no signs of the altar, the scroll, or the figure. Only shadows danced along the edges of her vision. "Keep moving." A voice sliced through the calm, low and urgent. It wasn't he, the lurking shadow, but a voice of someone familiar. Miriam. It was David, her childhood friend, his face lined with worry and defiance. "You've got to come with me. They're looking for you." "What do you mean? Who is looking for me?" Fear twisted in her gut. Was she being hunted? The weight of her discovery crashed back down, feeling very real in the soft rustle of the grove. "The council," he gasped, glancing around, shadows darting through the trees as if they had their own will. "They know you spoke with the prophet. They think you're the one who can break the curse." The curse. She felt the tension spiking again, boiling to the surface. The stories, the fears, the lives lost. "What do they want from me?" "They believe you hold the key to their salvation," David insisted, urging her forward. "But they're scared, desperate, and fear can drive people to madness." The mention of the council, those who held their past tightly like a noose, sent shivers racing down her spine. They were the bearers of tradition, but also the enforcers of silence. "What happened after I vanished? Did the fires spread?" "They're worse. The people are losing hope." "Miriam, if they think you can..." David paused, eyes wide. "We have to hurry. There is no time." Before she could respond, he seized her hand and pulled her through the trees. The ground felt alive beneath her, each step echoing possibility and dread. Desperate faces flashed through her mind. The villagers she grew up with, the weight of their expectations clamored in her ears. Voices grew louder, the murmur of angry whispers wrapping around her. Shadows lengthened, wrapped around them as they broke through the last of the trees and stumbled into the clearing where a gathering ignited like sparks of fear in the night. Miriam froze. The council stood before a terrified crowd, faces flushed with urgency, dread weaving between them. They turned, sensing her presence. "There she is," shouted a voice heavy with authority. "The one who spoke to demons." Miriam's breath caught. They weren't going to listen. "David," she began, but he squeezed her hand tighter. "No time for doubt. You have to own your truth." The council's leader raised a hand, silencing the murmurs like a violent gust of wind. "You carry her blood, child. Do you dare confront the past, or will you run from it?" Miriam's heart raced, her mind swirling with possibilities. Could she dare reveal what she had gleaned? "I can break the cycles," she called out, finding her voice steady in the storm. "But not without facing the truth first." Gasps swept through the crowd, a ripple of awareness sparking in the air. The council's eyes narrowed, determination replaced by the flicker of uncertainty. "Are you prepared?" whispered David, his grip unyielding. "Are you ready to fight for what you believe?" As their eyes met, a surge of power coursed through her, intermingling with fear. The echoes of the past thundered, and the abyss beckoned once more, but she would not turn away again. "Let us begin," she declared, a fierce resolve igniting within her once more. The whispers, the shadows, the weight of their ancestors loomed large, and she stepped forward, ready to take on what lay ahead. And within that clash of unresolved histories and urgent decisions, chaos loomed greater than any she had faced yet. Could she really change everything? The skies darkened, storms gathering above, and the cries of the crowd blended into a chilling symphony. As the first crack of thunder rumbled ominously overhead, Miriam braced for the storm that was about to break. Would she stand firm or be swept away in the tide of fate? All that was left was to find out. The air crackled with tension, the atmosphere thick as a drum, resonating with unspoken dread. The council's faces morphed from suspicion to something darker, a recognition that ignited the spark of fear deep within Miriam. She felt the weight of their unyielding gaze. Her heart raced as the shadows grew longer, encroaching upon her like wolves circling their prey. "Do you hear that?" David's voice sliced through the growing storm around them, urgency pulsing in each word. He scanned the crowd, eyes darting from one tense face to the next. "They're afraid. They know what you've seen." Miriam swallowed hard, her throat dry. "I survived that vision," she reminded herself under her breath, but doubts clung to her like a damp cloak. "I have to do this." The crowd shifted, a sea of restless murmurs swelling like an ocean. "The truth lies within you, Miriam," one elder cried, his voice rising above the roiling uncertainty. "Do you have the strength to uncover it?" The council leader stepped forward, towering and imposing, face a mask of grim determination. "You wish to confront the darkness of our past, child?" His tone was challenging, testing her resolve. "Then tell us what you learned. Are you ready to risk everything?" Miriam drew in a slow breath, flicking glances at David, who nodded encouragingly. She envisioned the darkness she faced before the chilling whispers, the flickering shadows. There was no turning back now. "I saw a vision," she began, her voice steadying with the gravity of her words. "The prophet spoke of cycles, of pain spilling into the lives of our ancestors. The curse isn't just our past. It's woven into our very being." Gasps erupted from the crowd, murmurs of disbelief interlaced with a palpable spark of hope. The council exchanged doubtful glances, but curiosity flickered in their eyes, a vulnerable crack in their stoic facade. "And what must we face to break the chains?" Another elder inquired, voice trembling with anxiety. "The truth." Miriam articulated the words, firm and piercing, like a blade cutting through their defenses. "The lives we live, the histories we ignore, they haunt us. The shadows are our own twisted reflections." Thunder rumbled above, a low growl warning of the tempest brewing just beyond their reality. Shadows danced dangerously close as if pushing, willing her to speak louder. "Each name we forget, each story we silence, binds us further to despair. But standing here, facing you all, I can feel the resolve growing. We can shatter the cycle." The murmurs turned into a roar, voices intertwining, rising in a crescendo. Whispers of "we can't face this" clashed against "she's right. We must." David squeezed her hand, a heartbeat of courage echoing through their connection. "Tell them. Make them see." "Yes." Miriam's voice grew bolder. "Together, we can confront our fears. We can claim our history instead of letting it consume us." But the council was not without its defenders. The leader's voice sliced through the clamor. "You risk our very foundation," recklessly invoking the wrath of those who've been silenced. A chilling darkness swept across the clearing. Miriam's insides twisted at the challenge of power looming in the shadows. "What price are we paying to remain silent?" She shot back, feeling the ember of rebellion spark. "Rotting away in our own despair?" Silence fell over the gathering, heavy and expectant. Miriam's pulse thundered in her ears as she dared to make eye contact with the council. What would they do? And then, like the flickering lights of a candle in a storm, Her voice dropped to an urgent whisper. Do you want to remain bound by generations of fear, or will you stand with me as we ignite the truth in the hearts of our people? As storm clouds swirled in the sky above, the council wavered. Long-held beliefs crumbled like old statues, threatening to collapse under the weight of history they buried deep. Choose wisely. The echoes of the shadowy figure reverberated in her mind once more. What are you prepared to lose? As the shouts and cries around them crescendos, Miriam braced herself against the tide of emotion swelling within her. The choice was not just theirs, it was hers too. Could she lead them into the abyss, to face a reckoning for the ages? A crack of lightning split the sky, illuminating the faces of the crowd, fearful, hopeful, desperate, resolute. What came next would change everything. What lay hidden in that darkness? What would rise from the ashes of silence? All eyes rested on her, waiting for a decision. A fragile moment stretched into eternity, and Miriam couldn't help but wonder, was she strong enough to navigate the storm, or would it drown her before the truth could rise? Miriam held her breath, time swelling around her like the crashing waves of a storm-tossed sea. The council's stony faces blended into one mass of anxiety. Every heartbeat seemed to echo louder than the last. Seconds felt like hours. David's grip on her hand tightened, grounding her, reminding her of the fire she felt within. You can do this, he urged, his voice barely a whisper amidst the mounting chaos. The tension in the air felt as heavy as lead, weighing down on her shoulders. Could she do this? Could she bring forth the truth from the suffocating silence that had defined their existence for centuries? As she began, her voice cracking under the weight of her determination. I'm not here to bring destruction, but to pave a new path forward. A path laden with our truths. More gasps rippled through the crowd. Some visibly flinched at the raw honesty that seemed to strike deep within their souls. Others shifted closer, drawn in by the warmth of her words, igniting a spark of hope. In the whispers of the past lies our salvation, Miriam declared, her voice strengthening. Our ancestors carried burdens, and we watched their pain in nightmares. Those shadows will always linger until we face them head-on. We cannot rise while we bury our history. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, their facade of authority wavering. It was then she noticed the flicker of doubt in their eyes, akin to a flickering flame in the twilight. There was fear, yes, but there was also something else, the desire for freedom. Miriam, the leader, finally breathed, his voice low and rumbling like distant thunder. You ask us to confront horrors we thought had been buried. The consequences could shatter us. What's left to shatter? She shot back, her pulse quickening with conviction. Our silence is a prison we built for ourselves. We let fear dictate our lives, and this fear festers in generations. Brothers turning against brothers. Daughters distancing from the truth. Behind her, she felt the audience's heartbeat quicken, like a drum echoing a rallying call. Bring it to light, shouted a young woman from the periphery, her voice echoing the spark of rebellion in her chest. Face the darkness together. Stronger now, voices melded into a rising anthem. We have a right to know. We have the power to change. A ripple of energy surged through the crowd, galvanizing even the most reluctant elders to stir. Soon, mutterings transformed into fervent chants, the air electric with renewed vigor. Miriam felt her heart race, matching the fervor swelling around her. But the council leader raised a hand, silencing the crowd. And what if the truth we uncover brings more pain than we can bear? What if history shows us we're the monsters? The atmosphere tensed, thunder echoing in the distance like an unwelcome reminder. She could sense the fear gripping the crowd again, an icy hand wrapping closely around the collective heart of her community. Then we will face it together, Miriam said, her voice resonating with steely resolve. No more fear. It's time we reclaim our voices. If our ancestors suffered in silence, let us be the ones to scream their tales. The crowd erupted into a roar, a chorus of fervent backs rising together. It was undeniable, the unyielding energy pulsated like a heartbeat, growing louder, drowning out the thunder that growled above. But as the excitement reached a fever pitch, something shifted. A chill washed over her, powerful and deep, as if the shadows themselves had taken a breath. The ground beneath trembled, and a vision flickered through Miriam's mind, a swirling mass of darkness, and within it, a face. Eyes burning with fury. Miriam. David's voice broke through the thrumming beat of her pulse. Look out. The ground cracked, and from the fissures emerged tendrils of darkness. Shadows writhed, reaching for her as if drawn by the very truth she had conjured. A growl echoed through the air, unmistakable and terrifying, as if the very fabric of their forgotten history was being summoned back to claim its rightful place. Run, Miriam shouted, instincts kicking into gear. The crowd was caught in a wave of panic. They scattered, fanning out like leaves in a tempest, but she stood rooted, feeling the pull of shadows tightening around her. She had summoned them, and now they craved more than just truth. What awaited her within that consuming darkness? What would emerge at the other end of revelation? The flickering storm above raged on, and she felt the ancient curse clawing at her, hungry for what it had lost. The shadows twisted closer, and Miriam's heart raced as her mind fought to comprehend the chaos. The anguished cries of her people faded into muffled whispers drowned by the keening growl from the depths below. It was intoxicating and terrifying, a siren song pulling her in. The swirling darkness felt alive, clawing at her sanity. Miriam. David's voice pierced through the din, but it was almost lost against the encroaching shadows. We need to get out now. He reached for her, eyes wide with fear, yet there was an intensity there that spoke to the fire they had ignited together. No, she shouted, her voice cutting through the fear like a knife. We can't run away from this. In her mind, memories of the past surged like a torrent, visions of families shattered, secrets buried so deep they molded the ground beneath her feet. The truth had called to her, swelled within her, and now it demanded attention. Without warning, the tendrils of darkness snapped forward, encircling her ankles and rising like serpents. She stumbled for a moment, but summoned the fire inside her once more. You have no power here. She screamed into the void, her voice fierce and unwavering. You fed on our silence for too long. The shadows writhed, recoiling from her defiance, shifting in a way that hinted at malicious intelligence. People were still scrambling, desperate hands grasping and pulling. The crowd was losing itself in the chaos, eyes wide with dread. But she couldn't focus on them now. Her eyes locked onto the center of the mass, and what she saw sent a shiver of horror coursing through her veins. The face from her vision, emerging from the dark, was twisted with anger, a reflection of every wound, every suffering her people had endured. It was a palpable fear made manifest, a tragic puppet of every secret long buried. Foolish child, the voice echoed, deep and resonant, reverberating through the ground. You awaken what was never meant to be disturbed. Truth can shatter, but it can also kill. The air grew cold as a sudden wind swept through the crowd. A swift uncertainty surrounded Miriam, and she felt herself growing weak. Yet, something sparked in her, a last flicker of resolve, a whisper of courage she couldn't ignore. This is our truth, she shouted yet again, raising her chin defiantly. It belongs to us, not you. The face twisted further, fury morphing into something akin to desperation. Did it fear her? The shadows grew agitated, thrashing as if in protest, while tendrils whipped around, desperate to snuff out her determination. Miriam. David's panic broke through again. He pulled hard on her arm, trying to draw her back, lost in the swell of the tempest. It's too much. We need to go. For a fraction of a second, she hesitated. Was it worth facing the darkness alone? Was the truth worth this? But then, another whisper reached her. A memory, a quiet face, proud and steadfast, nodding with approval. You are not alone, it echoed. With a surge of adrenaline, Miriam shoved David back and stood firm. We all have to stand together. Face the shadow, or let it consume us. The murmurs grew stronger, rallying behind her, but a sudden and crushing weight bore down. The ground shook violently, and cries of terror erupted anew. The mass of darkness loomed larger, desperate to reclaim its grip. It lunged toward Miriam, tendrils stretching to engulf her entirely. But in that moment of contact, something shifted inside her. She felt the weight of her ancestors, their pain, their rage, their forgotten truths all pouring into her. She raised her arms, calling forth their power. Together, she shouted, feeling the very earth tremble beneath her feet. We will not be crushed again. The shadows recoiled, their forms twisting and screaming as if burning in the light of her declaration. Miriam's eyes glimmered, fueled by an awakening. Light up the darkness. We will confront what we've hidden for too long. And just then, as the crowd joined her voice in a unified roar, the dark mass shrank back, revealing the fissures of history hidden beneath. An ebbing tide of shadows pulled away, leaving behind a glimmer of something bright and alive. But as the darkness began to subside, a sudden realization struck her. A new fear pierced her heart. What had she truly unleashed? Suddenly, a flicker of movement darted toward her from the shadows, like a whispered secret returning from oblivion. Miriam's breath caught in her throat. What remained in the aftermath of truth? What waited on the other side? The storm above raged, casting eerie shadows that danced across the ground, hinting at more secrets just below the surface. The shadows recoiled, but the flickering movement surged straight for Miriam. Her heart thundered in her chest, and she felt the crowd around her tense as if they could sense what was coming. What had she awakened? What had she disturbed with her rallying cry? A figure, indistinct and flickering at the edges of the darkness, emerged with a howl that made the ground slightly tremble beneath their feet. It coiled like smoke, swirling with a sinister grace around the remnants of shadow still clinging to existence. Miriam squinted, struggling to make out what approached her, a lump in her throat tightening with fear. Miriam! David's voice broke through again, but it was muffled, as if coming from deep underwater. His eyes darted between her and the approaching specter, panic lacing his features. Stay close, she managed, the urgency rushing out of her mouth. But deep inside, uncertainty coiled like a snake. What if she had brought them all into a trap? The figure stepped forward, and a bone-chilling clarity washed over Miriam. It bore the face of someone she once knew so well, a departed soul from her past. The likeness was unmistakable, yet twisted by anguish and fury, a reflection of all the lost hopes and dreams buried deep. It was as if the shadows had rifled through their collective history to summon this tormentor. Why? The figure's voice was a guttural whisper, echoing with a multitude of heart-wrenching sorrows, lost loves, and dreams. Why did you awaken us? Terror clawed at Miriam's mind. You shouldn't be here. But even as she spoke, she felt an irresistible link forming between them, the memories surfacing in her mind like a deluge. Laughter turned to sorrow, the flame of hope enacted only to be snuffed out by the weight of reality. You think you can use our pain? The figure hissed, shadows still swirling around its body like a shroud. Our power was meant to bury the truth, not reveal it. The wind howled, and Miriam felt her resolve waver. She had called upon their strength, yet had she summoned this rage? I did this for you. She stood tall, the shadows around her quaking as she poured the last of her defiance into her voice. I'm fighting to give you a voice again. Don't you want to be free? The figure recoiled, and as it did, the ground shook violently once more. David stumbled beside Miriam. What are you doing? He shouted, eyes wide in disbelief. You're calling them to you. I'm trying to set them free. She cried back, an urgency bursting within her chest. Can't you see it? We have to confront this. The crowd shifted nervously, their eyes darted between her and the figure, confusion growing. Tension pulled tighter, threatening to snap. Your truth only feeds me, it shrieked, the voice cracking like shattered glass, making Miriam's skin crawl. I thrive in the dawn of despair, the very essence of forgotten sorrow. You think you can outshine me, child? The shadows around the figure thickened, pulsating with an unnerving energy that drained the light from Miriam's heart. Miriam! David's frantic voice cut through the cacophony of noise, grounding her. We need to pull together. They're feeding off your fear. And then it hit her, like a flash of lightning. What if the shadows weren't just memories? What if they were the reflections of all the crushed spirits, angry at being neglected? She gasped, a thought forming, the weight of it pressing heavily against her chest. Together, we can illuminate what is hidden, she shouted, desperate to harness the power of fear into something tangible. Join me. We can rewrite this story. But the figure's laughter echoed back, hollow and chilling, and suddenly the shadows poured forth again, pushing against her, trying to snuff her out. A flash of light, a glimmer of hope, there it was, pushing through the rising dark, begging to be believed. But would it be strong enough against the tide? Miriam felt the pull of history against her, and she stared into the depths of the spiraling darkness, knowing it would take more from her than she ever anticipated. As she steadied herself, heart racing, uncertainty wrapped its icy fingers around her throat once more. Was the truth truly worth this battle? And just when she thought she could bear no more, the flickering image of another face appeared, brighter this time, breaking through the darkness, haunting yet hopeful, forcing her to question, could she really lead them toward salvation, or would it be too late? A deep growl echoed from the shadows, reaffirming the urgency of her mission, as something darker surged up once more, as if waiting for the moment to strike. What had she truly unleashed, and was the cost of truth greater than believing the whispers of her ancestors? All she could do was fight. What would that fight cost her? The shadows recoiled, but a new surge of defiance bubbled within Miriam. She could feel her ancestors gathering strength behind her, their energy pulsing in the air like an electric storm threatening to break. As the echoes of despair crackled around her, she steadied her breath. "Listen," Miriam shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "We're not just remnants of the past. We are generations of hope, and we will face this together." She locked eyes with David, who surged forward beside her, his fierce spirit igniting the crowd anew. A resonance formed within her as the crowd began to chant, a fierce collective voice rising to meet the thunderous growl of the darkness. Together, together, together. Each repetition spurred a flame of courage, pulling Miriam and David deeper into a powerful momentum. But the figure from the shadows, a twisted reflection of pain and anguish, balked at their defiance. "You think you can erase what you've hidden so long? You will regret this," it screeched, shadows twisting like angry serpents, thrumming with a force that threatened to engulf them. Miriam felt fear course through her, but she stood tall, fighting against the din of doubt. "We won't regret reclaiming our strength," she shouted, her heart hammering. "What we confront today is our true power." The light flickered within the crowd, faces brightening as courage bloomed amid the darkness, illuminating the truths long buried. It felt right. It felt strong. And in that moment, the figure shrank back, its twisted visage faltering. It wasn't simply a manifestation of anger. It reflected their own forgotten fears, their pain that had been faded but never truly erased. "You cannot bind me. You don't understand." The figure screeched, flailing as it struggled against the wave of resolve washing over it. "You will drown in your own truths." But Miriam felt the warmth of connection surge inside, filling her with purpose. No longer were they a mere collection of broken lives, they were united, bonded by their shared histories and lessons. "We have felt pain," she cried, her voice unwavering. "But pain does not define us. Our truth will set us free." With her declaration, the air burst alive with energy, each voice blending into an anthem of empowerment. The shadows shuddered, a brightness blossomed, fueled by unity, igniting the clearing with a fierce light that burned through the darkness. "What is this?" The figure howled, the desperation palpable as it clawed at the edges of its fading power. "You think you hold the flame? You're just a flicker in a forgotten void." A collective gasp erupted from the crowd, but Miriam gritted her teeth and held her ground. "I'm not just a flicker. Not alone." The light surged brighter as knowledge, love, and the weight of history combined in a powerful force. Their ancestors' stories coursed through her, sparking a connection that linked them all. "Together, we shine brighter than the shadows," she declared. "We will not let fear bury us again." As she spoke, the swirling mass of darkness began to shrink, trembling as if caught in a cyclone. It writhed and screeched, but Miriam and David held fast, their hands clasped tightly, unity running deep in their veins. Then came a thunderous roar, one final gasp of desperation from the figure before it crumbled, the tendrils of darkness dissipating like smoke caught in the wind. The curse, the very shadows that had haunted them, faded into nothingness. The crowd erupted into cheers, echoing through the grove, a vibrant symphony of hope and defiance. Miriam felt the weight lift, the air opening up as light surged brighter than ever. She had faced the abyss and returned, but even more, she had unlocked the beacon within her people. As the last remnants of darkness faded, Miriam and David stood at the forefront of their community, pulse racing, hearts alight with truth. They shared a look of understanding, daring to dream a new future, one built on honesty, connection, and collective strength. Get ready. The true journey begins now, Miriam shouted, her voice ringing clear with unwavering determination. In that moment, all knew they were the agents of their own destiny. The trials would not end, but they were not lost, no longer just the remnants of a cursed past. They were alive, and together they could forge a powerful future. The storm above quieted, sunlight breaking through the heavy clouds, shining down on the clearing with renewed warmth. Miriam took a deep breath, savoring the air of possibility. This chapter closed. The next one awaited a vast landscape of hope stretching before them, but they could only take their first real steps now, as a united front. And that was just the beginning. This is it. If you felt the pulse of hope and the spark of truth in Miriam's journey, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the thrilling epilogue of their story. Smash that like button now. Feed the algorithm, and let us spread this message of unity and strength. Flood the comments section and share your thoughts. What do you think will happen next? Can they truly break the cycle? Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of truth and connection. Your support fuels this journey, and we want you to be part of it all.